Okay, good morning, class. Welcome back to Math 11. Uh, Today we're going to continue on with our unit on trigonometry. Last time we looked at just uh, getting started with trig, looking at the language, the lingo, talked about the basic trig ratios, SOH, COTOA, sine, cosine, and tan. So today we're going to start with the first one of the three trig functions. We're going to review tangent ratios, and we're going to look at how to sketch a given scenario. So these are going to be word problems. We need to set up a scenario. It means draw a diagram, a triangle, putting on the information, and then solving it. So I'll go through a couple examples first, and I'll give you your assignment. Remember, right triangles, we're always using a triangle that has one angle that has 90 degrees. The 90 degrees, in this case, is at angle C. All right, so here's an example. This is just like a little map, somebody that goes to a lodge. Could be skiing or hiking. There's a cabin at this one point. There is a run or a trail that goes from the cabin all the way, let's get this highlighter, to a lodge. And then there's also a rest area from the cabin in this direction here. So we have three items here: a lodge, a cabin, a rest area, 3 different points in the triangle. So we call this distance run 1. The distance from the cabin and the rest area, they measured it at 4.5 kilometers. The first question is, what type of shape is formed when the lodge, cabin, and the rest area? Well, I think we can see. Oops. Let's get rid of that. And come up. Oh, it's a right triangle. Why? Because at one of the corners, that is a 90-degree angle, a right angle. Now, how can Paul determine the length of the run without using a measuring device such as a measuring tape or a trundle wheel? If he had a tape, he could start here and he could measure it all the way from here to here. But if that's kilometers, that's a long tape. So we got to find a quicker and easier way of doing it. And this is where a trig comes in handy. So what he can do is he can measure the angle between run 1 and run 2 and then use the cosine ratio. So if we look at it, if we know this angle between run 1 and run 2, we already have this side here. So if we have an angle and a side, we can use trig. We need to determine which one to use. Well, label the triangle first. So if this is the angle that I measured, and this side is my opposite side. Okay? Yeah. The side opposite the right angle is my hypotenuse, and the only other side left is my adjacent side. So what is given here? The 4.5 kilometers, that's my adjacent side. I want to find out how far the run is. Well, that means I have to find the hypotenuse. That's h. Well, remember, SOH, COTOA. The one that has a and h is cosine. So I'd have to use cosine to find that particular side if I knew the angle. So that's one strategy in trying to find out an unknown. Today we're going to look at one that can be used with tangent. So if we're given a length of 2 sides, we can use Pythagoras. This is what we did the first day. So if this is my right angle, this is my C side, A and B, we can always use my Pythagoras. In case here, they actually rename them. They put A here, B here, and C here. And this is the hypotenuse, then A squared equals B squared plus C squared. If we're given one angle and one side, This side, we had two sides. Here we only got one angle on one side. We have to use one of these things. SOHCAHTOA. All right? So if you have a problem given two sides, use Pythagoras. If you're only given one side and an angle, you have to use trig. Sometimes on the roads, especially if you go to places like Cape Breton, where it's hilly, you'll see signs like this. Remember, the shape of that sign and the color means warning. Steep slope, stay back. On highways, you'll often see other types of signs like this. They also are a warning. Okay? And they have an angle on it, 10%. Now this one is written in a foreign language, but the signs are the same all over the world. We always use standard signs for driving, because I could be driving over in Saudi Arabia or in China, and the red sign means stop, green means go, and yellow means warning. What does that 10% mean? Well, we can see here, there's a picture that looks like a little hill. The 10% means there's a 10% grade. There is an elevation. To go up the hill is 10%. Sometimes it's going down 10%. If you go up past Robsonville, past Campbellton, go up towards Kedgwick, there's a very, very steep hill there. And before you come down, there's a sign like this. And it's a warning to truck drivers, the great big 18-wheelers. It tells them that there is a decline. It tells you in percent, and it tells them to gear down, because they don't want to put the brake. If they start going down with a big truckload of logs, and they're always pressing on the brake to slow down, it's going to burn out the brakes. So they're advised to gear down to first gear. Usually at the top of the hill if you're going down, but at the bottom if you're going up. Sometimes people need to know if it's steep or not, especially if they have trailers behind them, because they want to check to make sure it's locked. They don't want to get halfway up and the trailer come off and flying backwards. Yeah. So yes, there may be one at the top, one at the bottom. So we're going to use tangent ratio. So what does that sign mean? It means that there's an 8% grade. What 8% means that there's an 8-foot change for every 100 feet. So if I go down 8 feet for every 100 feet. So if I start at the top of the hill here, and by the time I get to the bottom, I've gone from 100 feet horizontal. It means that I have come down 8 feet vertically. So that's my grade, 8%. 8% means 8 over 100. Or it could be meters. In United States, it would probably be feet, because they're standard, imperial. Oops. But in Canada, where metric, it would be meters. Okay, it would be meters, and we use kilometers. Down in the United States, they use feet and they use miles. Okay, so 5% grade, is that more or less steep? Or what do you think? Well, which number is bigger? 8, right? So 5% is going to be smaller. 5% is 5 over 100. So for every 100 feet, the grade is 5. So 5% is smaller than 8%. It's less steep. Less steep. So here's an example. He's driving a logging truck to a paper mill near Corner Brook, Newfoundland. The sign from the mill to the logging site warns them of a very steep slope. The slope of the hauling road uses a 5-degree angle with the ground. The mill and the logging site is 2,216 meters apart horizontally. Draw a sketch. Which side is adjacent, which side is opposite, and how high is the logging above the mill. So the first thing you do when you do a word problem is draw a sketch. So what I did here is I made a sketch. It said that here's the mill, the actual working site horizontally. Horizontally means flat. Oops, flat. So that is 2,216 meters. The road goes up to the site. The angle of the road is 5 degrees. So now we know that there's an angle of 5 degrees here. There is a distance of 2,216 meters horizontally. They want to know how high vertically is that site. So, first thing we did was draw the diagram. Then we write down what we know. The angle of the road is 5 degrees. The distance between the mill and point A is 2216. And the side adjacent to the given angle is the 2216, and the side opposite. So how do we get those? Remember, when we have a fresh reference angle, which is 5 degrees here, look quickly opposite. The long side is the hypotenuse, and the side next to it, the angle is left, is the adjacent, ADJ. So I have A, I have an angle. They want to know the opposite side. OA. Remember, so, ka, toa. Which one has an O and an A in the letters? It's only this one, toa. So that means I have to use tangent, the tangent formula. I don't use sine, I don't use cosine, I use tangent. So, I need to know the height of the logging site above the mill. Since I know that that angle now is 5 degrees, I know the adjacent side is 2216, I need to find the opposite side. So I write down my tangent formula. Tangent of the angle is opposite over adjacent. O over A. Tan of 5 degrees is equal to, we don't know what the opposite side is, we put an X. We do know what the adjacent side is. They tell us it's 2216. So now we have a proportional statement. Now anytime you have a number like 10 over 5, you can put anything over 1. Remember, a number like 6 is the same as 6 over 1. 5 degrees is the same as 5 degrees over 1. Because anytime you divide by 1, it doesn't change the number. But I made it into a fraction, so I can have a proportional statement. So now, I'm going to solve it. X is going to equal to tan 5 times 2216. Tan 5 times 2216. So I use my calculator. Five degrees tan times 2216, and I get 193.87. 193.874. Whole bunch of numbers. I don't need to put them all down. I just put 3. Remember, the third number is less than 5. We don't round up. We leave it the same. So it'll be 193.87. If I want to round it to the nearest whole number, I look at that decimal. It's greater than 5. So that means it goes from 193 to 194. Why? How do I know what to round it to? Always go back to the question. Are they whole numbers or fractions? You notice that there's no fractions in 2216. There's no fractions in 5. So I'm going to put my answer as a whole number. So I leave it as 194. So the height is 194 meters. 194. What's the height of the mill? The logging site above the mill is 194 meters above the mill. So if I went back to my triangle, this side here, the opposite side is 194 meters. Now please answer in a sentence, because if you just had that down, I'm not sure where to find my answer. So at the bottom, write down The answer is above the mill. Okay, so the working site or logging site is 195 meters above the mill. So that's your example. I think that if you remember the 8%, it means a ratio of 8 over 100. So this is going to be your practice sheets. I'm going to hand them out to you here in class, and the rest of us put them on the website. But you have a copy of page 312. You're just going to do 1A and B, just 2B and 4. And then this handout, you're going to just select these questions, 1A, 2A, 2B, C, and D. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions to answer. Okay.